You won't believe what's been going on behind the scenes. Rumors, secret meetings, and the kind of drama you only see in movies. This is what's happening between Justin Bieber and P Diddy. And now, fans are connecting the dots in ways that'll blow your mind. Picture this: Justin, once the face of every teen's bedroom wall, suddenly distancing himself from the man who helped him crack the music world. That's right, P Diddy, the man who's always seemed to have a hand in shaping the biggest stars in the game. But now, radio silence. No collabs, no shoutouts, not even a single happy birthday post. And people are starting to wonder why. It's not just gossip, there's real talk that something happened. Something big enough to break the bond between these two giants. And the more you dig, the weirder it gets. From wild parties to shady deals, from cryptic tweets to paparazzi photos that hint at way more than what's on the surface, the story is there. And today, we're going to dive deep. First off, let's clear the air. No one's saying Justin Bieber and P Diddy were besties for life. But their connection goes back way further than most people realize. Back in the day, P Diddy was this unstoppable force. He had a knack for finding young talent, and Bieber was no exception. Diddy saw something in Justin. The fresh face, the sweet voice, the kind of marketable charm that could sell out stadiums. And for a while, it worked. Justin was everywhere. But behind the scenes, that's where things get interesting. There are whispers about how Diddy would invite Bieber to these ultra-exclusive parties. We're talking about the kind of scenes you only hear about in hushed conversations. Big names, crazy nights, and a lot of questionable decisions. And Bieber, he was just a teenager trying to make his mark in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. The parties were wild, sure. But what was going on behind closed doors? That's what fans are starting to piece together. It's not just the parties, People are talking about how Diddy had this habit of pulling young stars under his wing. Sometimes that's a good thing, a mentor, a friend, a guide. But other times, it feels more like control. And with Justin, the signs were there. Every time he tried to break out on his own, there was this sense that someone was pulling the strings. And fans, they noticed. Let's not forget how Diddy was once spotted hanging out with Justin's manager, Scooter Braun. Back then, it seemed like a powerhouse move, two giants in the music world joining forces. But lately, that alliance has fizzled, and fans are wondering if that's part of the reason why Justin is keeping his distance. Because if there's one thing we've learned in the music world, it's that money talks, and sometimes, friendships don't survive the noise. You might be thinking, okay, but how do we know there's more to this than just business? Well, let's talk about the clues. First, the sudden drop-off. Justin and Diddy were once inseparable, at least on the surface. Diddy would post videos of them hanging out, sharing laughs, hyping each other up. But now, it's like a ghost town. No photos, no videos, no public appearances together. It's as if they've both agreed to pretend the other doesn't exist. Then there's the music. Bieber's latest albums have a different vibe. More raw, more personal, like he's finally telling his own story without any outside influence. Some people think that's a sign he's finally free from whatever hold Diddy might have had on him. And the lyrics, they are telling. Lines about betrayal, about losing trust, about feeling like someone else was calling the shots. Fans are starting to see a pattern. Of course, none of this would be complete without the fans themselves. They are the real detectives in this saga. They are digging through old interviews, piecing together every scrap of information. And what they are finding is enough to make you sit up and pay attention. There's a sense that Justin isn't just moving on from an old mentor. He's cutting ties completely, and he's doing it for a reason. One thing we can't ignore: the impact of the media. Paparazzi love a good story, and they've been all over this one. From blurry shots of Justin looking stressed in the back of an SUV to grainy footage of Diddy at yet another VIP party. The headlines write themselves. But when you start looking at the patterns, it's hard not to think there's something deeper going on. So, what exactly happened? Was there falling out? A betrayal? Or is it something darker? Something the tabloids haven't even touched? That's what we're here to find out. Let's rewind a bit to those early days. When Justin first broke onto the scene, he was still a kid, barely out of high school, still trying to figure out who he was. Diddy, on the other hand, was already a legend. He had the power to make or break careers. And he saw something in Justin. At first, It seemed like a match made in heaven. Diddy's connections and Justin's raw talent. They were seen together at award shows, private dinners, even jetting off on private planes. On the surface, it looked like a mentorship. But the more you look, the more it seems like Diddy was trying to mold Justin into his own image. And that's where the problem started. People who knew Justin back then say he was always trying to please everyone. He wanted to make the fans happy, sure. But he also wanted to make the people around him proud. And with Diddy, that meant going along with whatever was asked of him. The parties, the late nights, the constant pressure to be on. It was a lot for a teenager to handle. And let's be real, the music industry isn't known for being kind. If you're not careful, you can lose yourself in the hype. For Justin, that meant years of trying to live up to everyone else's expectations, until he finally snapped. We all remember those rough years, arrests, wild antics, a string of bad headlines. Justin was spiraling, and a lot of people blamed him. But what if it wasn't just him acting out? What if it was the result of years of pressure from people like Diddy? It's not just speculation, either. In some of his interviews, Justin has hinted at feeling like he was being used. He's talked about the dark side of fame, about how the people you trust most can end up being the ones who hurt you the worst. And while he never named names, fans think they know who he was talking about. There's one interview in particular that's been making the rounds lately. Justin was asked about mentorship in the industry, and he said something that stuck with people. Not everyone who calls themselves a mentor really cares about you. Short, but it says a lot. Fans think that was his way of talking about Diddy without actually saying it. And there's more. Remember that time Justin suddenly canceled his tour? The official reason was personal issues, but fans think it was more than that. They think it was his way of taking back control, of saying no to the people who'd been pulling the strings for too long. And who was at the center of it all? You guessed it, Diddy. But here's where things get even more interesting. Over the years, there have been whispers about what really goes on at those parties Diddy is famous for. We're talking about stories that would make your hair stand on end. Drugs, shady deals, and the kind of stuff that can ruin careers, or lives, if it ever got out. And Justin, he was there for all of it, whether he wanted to be or not. But if you think this is just some petty celebrity feud, you'd be dead wrong. Because the more you pull back the layers, the more it looks like Justin's decision to cut ties wasn't about drama. It was about survival. You see, in the years after he and Diddy first crossed paths, Justin's world got bigger, and a whole lot messier. His albums were topping charts. His face was everywhere. But behind those pop anthems and magazine covers was a kid who was completely overwhelmed. And Diddy? He was always around. Always there with a word of advice, or a party invite, or a promise that he could make Justin's career even bigger than it already was. But here's the thing. Not all that glitters is gold. Because while the world was falling in love with the teen heartthrob, there were things going on behind closed doors that would make your stomach turn. Fans have been digging into old interviews, trying to piece together how much of Justin's story was really his own, and how much was shaped by the people around him. And it all keeps coming back to those wild parties. The kind of nights where you don't know who's real and who's just there to take advantage. Some people call them industry mixers. Others call them something a lot darker. And Justin, he was right in the middle of it all. Way too young to understand the game he was being pulled into. People talk about the P Diddy effect like it's this magic touch that can launch careers. But if you're on the inside, you see a different side. You see the pressure, the manipulation, the constant push to keep up appearances. And for a teenager like Justin, that was a recipe for disaster. It wasn't just about the parties, either. There were deals, contracts, collaborations that never saw the light of day. Whispers that Diddy was trying to lock Justin in, keep him close so he'd always have a piece of that Bieber brand. And for a while, Justin went along with it. He wanted to make it, to prove that he deserved to be on those big stages. But at what cost? Fans have been connecting the dots, looking back at photos where Justin looks more like a deer caught in headlights than a global superstar. The body language says it all. Justin hanging back while Diddy holds court. Justin looking down while the cameras flash around him. It's the kind of thing you can't unsee once you start paying attention. Then there's the music. Justin's newer stuff. It's raw, it's honest, and it's nothing like the polished pop hits he was churning out in those early years. And that shift didn't happen by accident. Some people think it's because he finally stepped out of Diddy's shadow. started telling his own story without anyone else pulling the strings. And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Because it's not just about two celebrities who don't talk anymore. It's about control. About who gets to decide what your life looks like when you're at the top of the charts. And for Justin, cutting ties with Diddy wasn't just a career move. It was taking his life back. But don't get it twisted. This wasn't some neat, clean break. There was drama. There were arguments behind closed doors. Deals that fell apart. People who suddenly found themselves on the outside looking in. And Justin, he was done playing nice. Some fans think it all came to a head when Justin started speaking out about his faith, about finding his own path. Because that's not the kind of thing Diddy's known for. Diddy's about the hustle, the grind, the next big party. And Justin, he was done with that. He wanted something real, something that wasn't just about the next hit song or the next photo op. It's not hard to see why fans are eating this up. It's like a real-life soap opera, but with way higher stakes. Because we're talking about millions of dollars, about careers that can be made or broken with a single Instagram post. And through it all, Justin's been trying to find his own voice. To remind people that he's more than just a product of the music industry machine. Of course, Diddy's not exactly going around giving interviews about any of this. He's kept it moving, showing up at parties, posting those cryptic captions that always get people talking. But if you look close, you can see it. The cracks. The people who used to be in his orbit who've suddenly gone quiet. The way fans are starting to ask questions that don't have easy answers. And that's what makes this story so juicy. Because it's not just about what happened back then. It's about what's still happening now. The tension, the questions, the way every little clue gets picked apart by fans who've been following this story for years. Some say Justin's finally in a good place. That cutting ties with Diddy was the best thing he ever did. And maybe that's true. He's got his own family now. His own life that's not about chasing the next big headline. But the scars, they're still there. You can hear it in his music, see it in the way he moves through the world. Because when you've been burned by someone who's supposed to be looking out for you, that changes you forever. And Diddy, well, he's still out there, still the life of the party. But the whispers, they're getting louder. People are starting to wonder if all those years of controlling the narrative are finally catching up to him. And if Justin's decision to walk away was just the beginning. The fans, they are not letting this go. They are pulling up old videos, finding those moments where Justin looks like he's trying to smile for the cameras while his eyes say something else entirely. They are sharing stories, theories, piecing together a puzzle that's way bigger than just two celebrities who don't talk anymore. And the more you look, the more it feels like this isn't just about Justin and Diddy. It's about every young artist who's ever had to fight to be heard. Every kid who's been told to sit down and be quiet while the grown-ups make the decisions. It's about the music industry, and how sometimes the people you think are helping you are the ones holding you back. That's why this story matters. It's not just celebrity gossip. It's a window into a world most people never see. The backroom deals, the promises that get broken, the way a kid with a dream can end up in a place he never wanted to be. And for Justin, this was his way out. Cutting ties, telling his own story, and finally getting to be the person he wants to be, not the person someone else decided he should be. You know what's wild? Even now, years after the last photo op and the final handshake, people still can't stop talking about what went down between Justin and Diddy. It's like the story refuses to die. And every time you think you've heard it all, something new pops up. Because here's the thing, when someone as big as Justin Bieber cuts ties with someone as powerful as Diddy, it doesn't just vanish. It leaves a mark on the fans, on the industry, and most of all, on Justin himself. And that's what people are starting to see. The way he's changed. The way he's grown. Some of Justin's closest friends say the real turning point was when he realized he didn't need to impress anyone anymore. For so long, he'd been stuck in this cycle of trying to live up to everyone else's expectations. Diddy's, the labels, even the fans. But when he finally said, no more, everything shifted. It didn't happen overnight. There were moments when it looked like he might fall back in line. Those fancy parties, those late-night studio sessions. But something always pulled him back. Some people say it was Haley, that she gave him the strength to walk away from all the noise. Others say it was his faith, that finding something bigger to believe in gave him the courage to finally stand on his own. Whatever it was, it worked. Because the Justin you see now, He's nothing like the kid who used to trail behind Diddy, trying to look cool in a world that was way too fast for him to keep up. And that's what makes this story so real. It's not just about the headlines or the drama. It's about someone finding themselves in a world that never stops trying to shape you into what it wants. Fans say you can hear it in his music. The early stuff. It's catchy, sure, but it feels like he's singing someone else's song. The newer tracks, they're different. They're about pain, about hope, about figuring out who you are when everyone's telling you to be someone else. And that's the Justin people are falling in love with all over again. But don't think for a second that Diddy's just fading into the background. Oh no, he's still out there, still the king of the scene. But even he can't outrun the questions. Because when someone as big as Justin walks away, people want to know why. The whispers are getting louder. Stories about Diddy's parties, how they weren't just parties, but something else entirely. Stories about the deals that never got signed, the money that changed hands in ways that never made sense. And Justin, he stayed mostly quiet. But sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. You see it in the way he moves these days. More guarded, more careful. Like he's been burned enough times to know better. And fans are picking up on it. They're sharing clips of old interviews where Justin's eyes flicker just a little too fast, or where his laugh doesn't quite reach his eyes. They're saying, look, he's telling us without telling us. It's the kind of thing that turns a simple story into something way bigger. Because now it's not just about Justin and Diddy. It's about everyone who's ever felt like they had to play a role just to survive. And the industry, it's paying attention. Because if someone like Justin can walk away, what does that say about everyone else who's still stuck in those same patterns? Some of the biggest names in music are starting to speak out, too. Not directly about Justin and Diddy, but about the system itself. About how easy it is to lose yourself when you're surrounded by people who see you as a brand, not a person. And that's what makes this story so powerful. It's not just a gossip column headline. It's a mirror. Because for every Justin who finds a way out, there are a dozen others who don't. Who keep showing up to those parties, signing those deals, hoping that if they just keep smiling for the cameras, everything will be okay. But Justin's showing them that you don't have to play that game forever. That you can say, no more, and still come out on top. It's why fans are so protective of him now. They've watched him grow up, watched him fall and get back up again. And now that he's found his own voice, they are not about to let anyone take that away. Of course, Diddy's people will tell you there's nothing to see here. That it's just the natural ebb and flow of friendships in the industry. But come on, no one's buying that. Not when you've got years of history, of photos, of little moments that add up to something way bigger. The truth, it's probably a mix of everything. The parties, the pressure, the money, the power. And in the middle of it all, a kid who just wanted to make music and ended up getting pulled into a world that was way too dark for someone so young. And maybe that's why Justin's fans are so loyal. Because they see themselves in him. The way he's tried to stay true to himself even when everyone else was telling him how to live. But here's the part that no one's really talking about. What happens next? Because if you think Justin's just going to stay quiet forever, think again. There's a reason he's been so careful, so measured with his words. Because when he's ready to tell his side, it's going to change everything. And Diddy? He might be the life of the party, but even the biggest parties come to an end eventually. And when the music stops, the truth has a way of coming out. So, yeah, this isn't just some old story from the past. It's still unfolding, still taking shape. And the next part, it's going to be even crazier. Because what happens when the kid who was supposed to be controlled decides he's done playing by someone else's rules? That's the question everyone's asking. And the answers, they're going to blow your mind. They say that when you step away from the people who held you down, you see everything clearer. And for Justin, cutting ties with Diddy didn't just give him freedom. It opened his eyes to just how twisted the game really was. It's like the fog lifted, and suddenly he was seeing things for what they were. The fake smiles, the broken promises, the way people only showed up when it was time to party or take a picture. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Justin's been dropping little hints for years, bits and pieces in interviews and lyrics that tell a story if you're paying attention. Like he's been waiting for the right moment to let it all out. And fans, they're ready. They're piecing it together, like detectives on a mission. Some of them think the real turning point was around the time Justin got married. Because before that, he was still half in and half out of that world. Still going to the parties, still trying to make everyone happy. But when he found someone who really knew him, who saw past the fame, that's when everything changed. Hailey wasn't about the Hollywood scene, the after-parties, the endless hustle. She wanted something real, and she helped Justin see that he didn't need to keep playing that game to matter, that he could walk away from all of it and still be enough. And that scared some people, because if Justin could step away, if he could say no to someone as powerful as Diddy, what did that mean for everyone else? The music industry doesn't like it when people go off script. But Justin, he didn't care anymore. The fallout was messy. You can't just walk away from someone like Diddy without consequences. There were people in Justin's camp who didn't like the move, people who said he was making a mistake. But Justin, he'd spent too long being told what to do. He wasn't about to go back to that. There's this one story fans love to bring up, a night at a party in LA, right around the time Justin and Diddy stopped being seen together. Someone who was there said you could feel the tension in the air, like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Diddy was holding court, telling stories, making everyone laugh. And Justin, he was standing in the corner, not really talking to anyone. Then Diddy came over, all charm and big energy, trying to pull Justin back in. But Justin just shook his head, didn't even raise his voice, didn't make a scene. Just a quiet no, and in that moment, everyone knew it was done. That's the thing about this story. It's not about some big blow-up or dramatic fight. It's about 1,000 small moments like that. Moments when Justin chose himself over the hype, over the pressure, over the people who wanted to control him. And now, it's like he's a whole new person. More grounded, more sure of who he is. You can see it in the way he talks about his music, about his faith, about the people who really matter to him. He's not chasing anyone's approval anymore. And that's powerful. But don't get it twisted. Just because Justin's moved on doesn't mean the ghosts of that time are gone. They're still there, in the old videos and photos, in the stories people can't stop sharing. And for Diddy, those whispers aren't going away anytime soon. There are people out there who say Diddy's empire isn't what it used to be, that the parties aren't as wild, the deals aren't as sweet. And a lot of that comes back to stories like this. Stories about people who finally had enough, who saw the truth and walked away. And it's not just Justin. There's a whole generation of artists who grew up in the shadow of guys like Diddy, who learned the hard way that not everyone who says they're looking out for you really is. And seeing Justin cut ties, it gave them permission to do the same. Some fans say this is bigger than just music. It's about taking back your life from the people who think they own it. About realizing that no matter how much fame or money you have, you're still a person first. And that's the lesson Justin's living out every day. Because let's be real, Justin could have played the game forever. He could have kept showing up to those parties, kept letting other people shape his story. But he didn't. He chose to step back, to take control. And that's what makes this whole thing so inspiring. It's not just a story about a falling out. It's a story about finding your voice when everyone's trying to silence you. About knowing your worth, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. And for fans, that's everything. Because they've been there with him through all of it. The highs, the lows, the moments when it looked like he might not make it. And now, they're seeing him on the other side, stronger than ever. Of course, there are still questions. Still things Justin hasn't said. Still things Diddy's never admitted. And maybe they never will. Maybe some of those secrets are too heavy to share. But even without the full story, the message is clear. You don't have to let other people's expectations define you. That's the heart of it. That's why people can't stop talking about this. Because it's not just about Justin and Diddy. It's about all of us. About what it means to stand up for yourself. To say, this is my life, and I'm done letting you tell me how to live it. And that's bigger than any hit song or sold-out show. That's something real. Something that can't be bought or sold. You know what's really interesting? How the more Justin has pulled away from Diddy, the more people are starting to see the cracks in the whole system. Like, suddenly everyone's realizing that maybe it's not just about one superstar and one mogul. It's about an industry that's built on taking and taking until there's nothing left. And that's what makes this part of the story so wild. Because Justin's not the only one who's been through it. He's just one of the few who had the guts to say, I'm done. And that's got people talking in ways they never have before. See, When you've got someone like Diddy, someone who's been at the top for decades, there's always going to be this aura of invincibility around him. Like he can do whatever he wants and no one can touch him. But the second Justin walked away, that aura started to crack. And you can see it. You can feel it. There are people in the industry, artists, managers, producers, who've been saying for years that Diddy's way of doing things isn't the only way. But they were always too scared to say it out loud. Now, they're not so sure they have to stay quiet anymore. And that's the ripple effect of Justin's decision. It's bigger than him, bigger than Diddy. It's about the whole machine that chews people up and spits them out. And fans, they're not turning away from this story. They're leaning in closer, because they know what's at stake. They see the way Justin's been living lately, more low-key, more real. He's not out there chasing headlines or trying to be seen at every party. He's making music that actually means something to him. He's showing up for his friends, for his wife, for himself. And that's what people love. Because it's real. And in a world that's built on smoke and mirrors, real is rare. But that doesn't mean it's been easy. There are still people out there who want to drag Justin back into the old patterns. People who say he owes his career to Diddy, that he wouldn't be where he is without that early push. And maybe that's true. Maybe Diddy did help open some doors. But at what cost? Because the truth is, no one gets to decide who you are except you. And that's what Justin's been showing everyone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who tell you they made you. And Diddy is still out there, still making moves, still trying to keep that empire going. But the energy's different now. There's this feeling that maybe the game is changing, that the old rules don't work anymore. And that's got to be a scary thing for someone who's built their whole life on being the one in control. It's like this giant game of chess, and Justin just flipped the board over. And you can bet Diddy's not too happy about that. But for Justin, it's the first time he's playing by his own rules. Some of the people closest to Justin say that's the biggest shift of all. Not just cutting ties with Diddy, but realizing he doesn't need anyone else to validate who he is. That he doesn't have to be the kid who does what is told just to keep the peace. And that's what makes this part of the story so powerful. Because for every person who's ever felt like they had to keep quiet, Justin's showing them it's okay to speak up. That it's okay to walk away, even when it's hard. Fans have been sharing their own stories, too, about bosses who took advantage, about friends who weren't really friends at all. They are seeing themselves in Justin's journey, and it's giving them hope. Because if he can do it, maybe they can, too. But let's be real, this isn't some fairy tale. There's no neat ending, no perfect resolution. Because the scars from that time, they're still there. You can hear it in Justin's voice when he talks about the early days. The way he pauses, the way he chooses his words so carefully. Like he's still figuring out how to tell the story without getting lost in it all over again. And that's what makes him so relatable. Because haven't we all been there? Trying to find the words to talk about the things that hurt us, even when we're not sure anyone else will understand. For Justin, the music's been the one place he can let it all out. The place where he doesn't have to pretend anymore. And that's why people connect with it so deeply. Because it's not just catchy hooks and radio hits, it's his truth. And that's something you can't fake. The fans get it. They've seen him at his lowest, and they've seen him come back stronger. They are not just fans, they are witnesses to a story that's still being written. And they are not going anywhere. As for Diddy, only he knows what he's really thinking. Maybe he's moved on. Maybe he's still trying to figure out how to spin the story his way. But here's the thing. When you build your empire on controlling the narrative, you don't get to decide what people believe forever. Sooner or later, the truth has a way of slipping out. And for Justin, that's enough. He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Because at the end of the day, he knows who he is. And he knows what he had to walk away from to get there. So yeah, the story's still going. There are still questions, still rumors, still things we'll probably never know for sure. But one thing's crystal clear. Justin Bieber isn't the same kid who used to stand in the corner at Diddy's parties, trying to smile for the cameras. He's someone who took his power back. Someone who learned the hard way that sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you needed to find the thing you were looking for all along, yourself. If you've made it this far, you know this isn't just a story about two celebrities. It's about how easy it is to lose yourself when everyone around you wants a piece. And how sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. For Justin, this wasn't just about cutting ties with Diddy. It was about reclaiming his voice, finding his way back to the kid who loved music before the money and the fame and the parties. And that's what's so powerful about how it all ended. Because think about it. How many people in his position would have just kept quiet, kept showing up, kept playing the part, even if it meant losing themselves in the process? But Justin didn't. He stepped away. He said, "This isn't me anymore." And that takes guts. It's the kind of thing that sticks with you. Because when you see someone that famous, that successful, admit they don't have it all figured out, it reminds you that it's okay to start over. That it's okay to choose yourself, even when it's messy. And yeah, it was messy. There were headlines, rumors, people trying to spin the story their way. But through it all, Justin stayed focused on what really mattered, his own truth, his music, his faith, his family, the stuff that actually makes life worth living. Fans say that's what they love most about him now. That he's not trying to be perfect, he's just trying to be real. And in a world that's always telling you to put on a show, that's the most powerful thing of all. It's like the final piece of the puzzle finally clicked into place. Because for so long, it felt like Justin was being pulled in a million directions. Everyone wanted a piece of him. Everyone wanted to tell him who to be. But now, he's the one calling the shots. And you can hear it in his music, see it in the way he carries himself. It's a quiet kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Of course, there are still people out there who'll say he owes everything to Diddy. That without that early push, he wouldn't be who he is today. And maybe there's some truth to that. But here's the thing. Just because someone helps you get started doesn't mean they get to control how the story ends. And for Justin, this is the ending he chose. One way is not just surviving, but actually living. One way he gets to be the person he wants to be, not the person someone else decided he should be. It's the kind of story that doesn't have a neat bow on it, because real life is messy. And maybe that's the point. That sometimes, the best thing you can do is let go of the fairy tale and just be honest about where you are. For fans, it's a story that hits close to home. Because we've all had those moments, those times when we realized the people we thought were looking out for us were really just looking out for themselves. And seeing someone like Justin come out the other side, it's a reminder that we can, too. And what about Diddy? He's still out there, still making moves, still trying to keep the party going. But the energy's shifted. The fans see it, the industry sees it. And maybe, just maybe, Diddy sees it too. That the old ways don't work anymore. That people are done letting someone else write their story. It's a new chapter, not just for Justin, but for everyone who's ever felt like they didn't have a say. Because if Justin can do it, if he can walk away from someone as powerful as Diddy and still find his own voice, then so can anyone. And that's what makes this story more than just celebrity drama. It's a reminder that we all get to decide what kind of life we want. That it's never too late to choose differently. So yeah, the headlines will keep coming. The rumors, the theories, the endless speculation. But at the end of the day, the truth is simple. Justin Bieber isn't defined by his past with Diddy. He's defined by the choices he made to take his life back. And that's the part of the story that no one can take away from him. So if you're still here, still watching, still piecing together every clue, remember this. You're watching someone find their own way, in a world that never wanted him to. And that's the real story. Because no matter what happens next, no matter what headlines come out tomorrow, Justin's already won. Not because he's the biggest star in the world, but because he's finally living life on his own terms. And that's something worth holding on to.